Hello, everyone. This is your host, Debra Poneman, and I'd like to welcome you to our call with today's guest, Richard Luck, who will be speaking on the topic, 6 Easy Steps to Shifting Your Consciousness and Reaching Your Full Potential. Richard Luck is the co-founder of New You Life Coaching. He is a fully qualified NLP master trainer, a hypnotherapist, creative success coach, and business consultant. Rick's coaching style incorporates a rare and ingenious approach to understanding and empowering people in a truly insanely effective manner. In fact, Rick has not only personally managed businesses that turn over more than $1 million a day and consulted for some of the largest companies in the world, including Coca-Cola and Nestle, but has helped thousands of individuals and businesses rapidly and effectively overcome obstacles and hurdles caused by limiting beliefs, conflicting values, fears, and negative decisions. Today, Rick will share with us the 6-step process that will shift your consciousness and create a true change in your reality, real-life examples of how the smallest shift in consciousness can create enormous results in relationships, finances, health, and even spirituality, a simple and easy daily routine which will increase your self-esteem and self-confidence, and finally, a source of abundant success information that is literally right in front of your face. So, Richard, thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the call.
Hey, Debra, how you going?
I am going so well because I am interviewing you, and you know you are one of my favorite people on the planet. So I'm very happy
nice
today.
To me.
But
I love talking to you too.
Well, it happens to be true, and I would love it if you could take a few minutes to share with everybody, before we dive into our questions, what you believe were the major turning points that allowed you to manifest your current level of success.
Sure. I remember going back now, I guess it would be 12 years ago now that I had my major shift in my life, and it was one of those things where everything in an instant goes wrong. And I lost pretty much all of my finances. My career turned in the wrong direction and started going downhill very rapidly. It was that bad. My mother actually was diagnosed with a very aggressive form of dementia and died within the space of 4 months of being diagnosed with it. My marriage ended. My friends left me. There was a point where, because my marriage ended, I'd moved out into my own apartment and I couldn't even afford my own apartment. I ended up evicted, which is getting evicted from your house is not a very pleasant experience, especially when you've got nowhere to go. And I remember I spent quite a long time on a friend's pull-out couch in their lounge room. And I think that, when I look back on that time now, I know that this was something for me that had to happen for me. That was what I needed to turn around, because I've been getting all these warning signs for years and years before this that I needed to do something different with my life, and I just wasn't paying attention. So finally, I got the big kick in the backside from the universe, and that's what changed my life, really, because I was at the bottom of the well, and for me, it was when I was at that place. What was the very bottom for me, and I know I'm sure other people have been worse places than that, but for me that was the bottom, and it was at that point that I turned around. It was at that point that I realized that it's our thinking, the way we consciously think about things, the way we consciously manage our beliefs and our values that makes an enormous difference in our life. It's how we create our life. It's everything that exists in our life right now as a result of those values and beliefs. And at that point, I realized that, and I remember being guided into a bookstore, literally guided into a bookstore, and the only book that was available to me was a book by Wayne Dyer, The Power of Intention. And when I read that book, that's when I realized, and everything changed from that point. And I started pulling myself out of the well. I built an extremely successful property investment business. And in fact, that's where the source of my income, or 70% of my income, comes from my property investment business to even today. And then I went on to realize that what I'd learned was what I'd learned in my own life was very teachable, and I just had this great desire to be able to share this information with people so they don't have to go through the bottom of the well experience to be able to learn how to change their life. And that's what I've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years. I've been creating products that are designed and coaching people with one purpose in mind, to be able to help them see that their values and beliefs are holding them, not all of them, just the ones that are not serving them, are holding them back from having everything that they could truly want. So that's what I went through.
Yeah, I got it. So basically what you say is that people have to shift their consciousness, and different people describe shifting consciousness differently. Can you tell us how you define shifting consciousness?
Sure. To me, when we shift in our conscious, or shifting our conscious, is when we deliberately decide to consciously change those values and beliefs that are no longer serving us. So if you have, or you don't have something in your life that you really want in your life, the reason you won't have it is because it's a value or a belief you have that is holding you back from achieving it. And when we get a shift in consciousness, or when we make a deliberate shift in consciousness, that's when we can change it. Because we all have beliefs about everything that we've ever been exposed to or experienced. And it's those beliefs that actually build up into values, and ultimately they build to determine what our behavior is. And it's our behavior that creates our reality around us. And we shouldn't make any mistake about the fact that our behavior is driven almost completely by our unconscious mind, which uses our values and beliefs as its guidance system. You see, our conscious minds are only capable of processing a small amount of information at any one time. So our conscious mind can process about 5 to 7 chunks of information, whereas our unconscious mind is able to process millions of chunks of information every second. And the truth is, if we didn't have our subconscious or unconscious minds at play or working with us, we would be completely overwhelmed with the amount of information that's fed in through our five senses, and we wouldn't be able to do anything. So our unconscious minds are actually like our operations, or like the operations manager in a manufacturing plant. They take care of managing the plant, and they only bring the really important stuff to the owner's attention. The operations manager of a manufacturing plant has a set of procedures and a set of policies that he or she will follow to make choices and make decisions that are needed to be made to run that plant, right? And in the same way, our unconscious minds are the operations manager of our daily lives, and they use our beliefs and values as the procedures and policies to make choices about how we're going to behave. And it only brings to our attention, our unconscious mind only will bring to our conscious attention the things that are important. And if it's important enough, it'll even use our emotions to get our attention. And if it's really important, our unconscious mind even has the ability to make us physically sick to get our conscious attention. And the problem that most people experience, the problem that we all experience, is that some of the values and beliefs don't help us anymore. Some of our values and beliefs don't help us anymore. They used to help us when they were originally created, but they become outdated, and we really need to replace those ones that are outdated. Just in the same way that a business would change or update the procedure manuals and the policies that run the business, we also have to update our beliefs and values that ultimately run our behavior. And it's these values and beliefs that will prevent us, the ones that aren't serving us, that will prevent us from reaching our fullest potential. So a shift in consciousness is a process that we go through that allows our conscious mind to take control of our operations manager and give them the right procedures and policies so we can change our behavior to achieve whatever it is that we want. And I want to be really clear about this, right? If we don't make these shifts in conscious thinking, then we're not going to change anything in our lives. If we continue to think the same way about things, we will continue to get the same things in our life. And I can promise you that with 120% certainty, nothing will change in your life unless you make these conscious shifts to change those values and beliefs that aren't working with you anymore. And when I say conscious shifts, I'm not talking about deciding, that you want to be rich. That's not a shift in thinking. That's only recognizing that there's something that you don't have that you want to have. Changing the way you think about money and how much of it you deserve and your ability to attract it into your life is the kind of shift that we need to make, not just to recognize you want more of it. You have to change. If you want money, you have to change the way you actually think about money. And it applies to everything, not just money. It applies to our relationships. It applies to our health. It even applies to becoming more spiritual. I love some of Einstein's quotes, and there's two of my favorites. The first one is, he said that problems cannot be solved by the same level of thinking that actually created them. And he also said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. So to put it simply, if you continue to think the same way about a problem that you have in your life, and that problem can be not having enough money, not being spiritual enough, not having the kind of relationship that you want, if you continue to think the same way, then you will continue to have the same problem in your life. And that's no conjecture, that's a fact. And I know this because I've worked with so many people and I've seen it so many times. So what I want to do today during this time, because I know we've only got an hour, so we're going to have to move through this rapidly, because I want to share with you the same 6-step process that I use to help my one-on-one personal coaching clients to make this shift in consciousness. And these are going to be the techniques or the process that I also use in my life every single day. And I'm even going to give our listeners a workbook at the end of the interview to help them work through this 6-step process. So I'll give everyone the details on how to collect their free 6-step process workbook at the end or towards the end of the interview. Now that's the good news, right? That's the good news. But I have to give our listeners a little bit of tough love, right? So if anyone out there was to actually take a hard look at their life right now, what they would see is an accurate representation of the instructions that they have given to their operations manager. If someone doesn't have all the money that they want right now, it's only because the instructions that they've given to their operations manager are wrong. They don't have the relationship they want, or they don't have the health they want, or the spirituality they want. The instructions they've given to their operations manager are wrong. Whatever anyone has in their life right now will always match exactly the policies and procedures that they've given to their operations manager to follow without exception, right? This is the values and beliefs I'm talking about. Whatever you've got in your life, it is a perfect match for your values and your beliefs. Now, some people will say to me when I tell them this, that that's not what my instructions are. They might even say it's not what I want. And at a conscious level, it isn't what they want. But that's not where the procedures and policies that run your behavior are actually stored. They're not stored at a conscious level. They're stored in the unconscious mind. And that's where your unconscious mind or your operations manager retrieves them from. So the other thing that happens is when I talk to people about this, they'll say, well, what about having the right skills? How important is having the right skills to create whatever you want? So, for instance, people will say, well, I can't become an expert property investor simply by thinking or changing my values and beliefs around money and how much I deserve. I need to have some skills, right? And absolutely, having the right skills is absolutely essential, right? Like I said, there's no way that you would be able to become a successful property investor without a very special set of skills and knowledge. But here's the thing with skill sets, right? You'll never really truly obtain the right skills and knowledge unless you have the right thinking in the first instance. You've got to have the right set of operational procedures and policies built within yourself so as you can then go and learn the right skill set. So for instance, if someone had a belief, we'll talk a little bit about property investment just for a couple of minutes or for a minute or so, because this is something another thing that I'm pretty passionate about. So if someone has a belief that they don't want to actually have any debt in their life, right? And I know that there's a lot of people that feel this way, because a lot of people, when I talk to them about financial freedom or setting them up for financial freedom, one of the very first things that people will say is, I don't want to have my mortgage anymore. I don't want to have any debt in my life. So I know a lot of people feel that way. But if that's a belief that you have, that you want to get rid of all your debt, then you won't learn some of the best property investment strategies, because they involve having large debts. In fact, up to 80% of the value of the property. And if you have a belief about getting rid of debt, then it's going to severely restrict your ability to be able to create wealth through property investment. That's only one example, right? It applies to having the right thinking applies to everything in your life. If you don't have the right thinking, you are not going to really get the right skill set. So that's the bad news, right? And it's just wherever you are now, it's a direct result. Wherever everyone is right now, it's a direct result of the values and beliefs or policies and procedures that they have in place. But here's the thing, right? It might sound like bad news, but it's also good news, because hopefully it's becoming obvious that if we can make a shift in our consciousness, then we can make a huge shift in the reality of our lives. So to me, that's good news. If you can recognize that, hey, I've just got to change a couple of these beliefs and values that are holding me back, then that's a good thing, because now you know what you need to do to be able to achieve whatever it is you want. And you can literally have, do, or be anything that you want. Does that kind of explain that was a very long-winded explanation of what I think a shift in consciousness is about, yeah?
Yes, no, it was absolutely brilliant, and we are ready to hear the 6-step process that will allow us to shift our consciousness and create that change in our realities.
Sure. What I want to do is, if it's okay with you, I'd like to just talk about a couple of examples of how people have shifted their consciousness and the results that they've had, because I think it's something that's important, that people can actually see what a small shift in consciousness, the size of the change that can be achieved by making a small shift in consciousness. So I've got a couple of examples I'd like to run through. Is that okay if we do that?
I would love to hear them.
Okay, sure. So just before I start the examples, I want to let our listeners know that as I'm going through these examples, you will begin to see a pattern emerge that will give you some great insights into how anyone can make their very own shift in their life and start producing startling results really quickly. So the first one is, I was working with a person whose business was going very well, but she actually felt as though she was missing out on some sales and she wanted to improve her business, right? So here's what happened. Within 2 weeks of starting to work with her, we actually managed to double her sales with only a really small increase in her workload. And it only took a really small shift in her thinking. In fact, it was a phenomenally small shift in her thinking to achieve this amazing result. And this is where it's really powerful. It's just such a small shift can produce such amazing results. So what she was doing was spending about 15 minutes a week making sales calls, right? That's all she was doing in terms of generating sales for her business. The rest of the time she was tied up doing everything else. And even though she was only spending 15 minutes a week doing sales calls, she was actually making $400,000 a year in sales. So this is pretty powerful salesperson and a phenomenal product that she was selling. But the problem was that she came to me and said, look, I can't find the time to make the calls. And as it turned out, well, she couldn't find time to make any more calls than the 15 minutes that she was already spending on the calls, right? So it turned out that the reason she couldn't find the time to make any more calls was because she didn't like calling people and making sales calls. That was the reason for it, right? So in this instance, her thinking was stuck in the place that she had to make the calls and she just couldn't bring herself to do it, right? Now, there's a few ways that I could have worked with her to get a shift in the consciousness. But what we did was we shifted her thinking, and this all happened, right, in about 5 minutes. We shifted her thinking about why she felt she was the only one who could make the calls. And the next thing you know, right, she actually realized that she could get somebody else to make the calls. And she doubled her sales. The very next week, her sales doubled. Right? She found somebody, gave them the responsibility of making the calls, and then off she went. Now, the other person didn't convert quite as well as her, so the other person had to spend, a bit more than 15 minutes. I think it was a couple of hours making sales calls. But the point being, in a 5-minute conversation with her, she had a shift in her conscious thinking. She realized that she had a belief that had her stuck in a place where she believed, firstly, that she had to make the sales calls. And the moment that she had that shift of consciousness, she literally doubled her sales the next week. And if you think about how much money she lost over all those years that she'd been trying to work this out for herself, it's really scary. This is what I am so passionate about, helping people shift the way they consciously think about things, because it makes such an incredible difference in their lives. And I'm going to show everyone how to do this, right? I just want to make sure that they can see how powerful these results can be with just the smallest shift in thinking. Another client that I was working with earlier on this year was to help her. I was helping her to try and find her ideal partner, right? And she'd been looking for someone for years and wasn't having any real success. And I asked her why she wanted to find someone. And she said that she was feeling like her life wasn't complete, and that if she could find her soulmate, then that would make her life complete. And I hear this a lot, right? Because most of us are conditioned to have a belief that we have to have a partner in our lives to be complete. It's presented to us as the norm in movies and TVs, in our upbringing, and just about everywhere else we look in our Western culture. It's kind of like you need to have a partner for your life to be complete. It's kind of like a very strong social norm. And because of that very strong social norm, it becomes a belief of ours, and it becomes very easy to jump to conclusions about what might solve our problems in terms of feeling like our life is not complete. So we went through a process with her that shifted her thinking to believe, and now this is really a phenomenal one. Again, this happened in just a few minutes, right? We went through this process that shifted her thinking to believe that there might be other solutions to what she was feeling. That was all it was. Just instead of, she was so sure that the solution to her problem was to find a partner. When we shifted her consciousness, when we shifted her thinking, just to believe that there might be other solutions other than finding a partner, it changed completely the way she was thinking about things. And it turned out that the real reason that she wasn't feeling complete was that she'd actually just simply forgotten how to be really happy with herself, to accept herself, to love herself, and just to be who she was. And she was saying that she has never been happier. She loves going to work again. Her career has really taken off. Her relationship with her son has improved out of sight. All of her friends keep asking her, it's like that movie. They keep asking her, what is she taking? Because they can really see this phenomenal shift in her. And she's enjoying her time with herself, so much so that she has actually no interest in finding a partner at all. And she couldn't thank me enough. And all I did was create a shift in her thinking, just got her to think about things differently. The process just took a few minutes, right? So imagine, though, just for a moment, what would have happened if she hadn't have had that shift. Imagine that she would have gone out, she would have found a partner. It wouldn't have solved the problem. Then you'd have, all kinds of relationship problems. It'd just get worse and worse instead of her getting the results that she wants. And again, I'll say it's just the smallest shift in our thinking can produce enormous results. There's a guy that I was working with as well who had a very bad case of asthma, right? Actually, just before I talk about that, I want to explain something. I want to say that even though I'm sharing some of these amazing stories about my one-on-one coaching clients, the 6-step process that I'm actually going to show or step everyone through very shortly will actually allow them to make their shift on their own. So I'm not trying to sell coaching programs or anything like that. I just want people to see, or as many people to see as possible, that if they follow this 6-step process, because this is the process I use with my clients, if they follow this 6-step process, they can make a shift on their own, and it only has to be a small shift to produce really amazing results. And, this is why I create all of my videos, all of my audios, all of my ebooks, and all of the training programs that I do, right, is simply because I just want people to see that they really can have their cake and they can eat it too. Anyway, I got sidetracked. So back to the asthma case. So this person had been using their inhaler about 20 times per day, right? Now, it would seem like a fairly straightforward physical illness that couldn't be overcome by shifting your thinking. Certainly, this guy had been trying all sorts of different methods over about a 30-year period to be able to at least get some relief from having to use his inhaler. Because like I said, he was using it about 20 or 30 times a day, right? But here's what happened. Because he'd been the victim of this illness for so long, and because this asthma is such a life-threatening disease when you have a bad case of it, and I'll say that I know this because my grandmother died from an asthma attack. She didn't have her inhaler with her, and it literally killed her. So the slightest sign of an attack had actually created a learned response with this gentleman, and what was happening was he was creating his own anxiety about a potential attack that he was going to have, and that ultimately brought on the attack, right? So it was his anxiety that he was creating that was causing a greater percentage of the attacks that he was having. So, again, right, this is incredible. We spoke about this for about 20 minutes, right? We shifted his thinking around about how to see those pre-warning signs and about how to relax, right? Again, it was a little bit longer with him, so it was about 15 or 20 minutes. But remember, 15 or 20 minutes compared to, I think he'd been suffering from this for all of his life, was about 40 years, right? So it's not really long in the scheme of things. But when he shifted his thinking about the attacks that were coming and learned to become more relaxed. So instead of having the belief that he was going to have an attack, he had the belief that he can relax and manage those very early symptoms. When he had that shift in his consciousness, he went from using his inhaler from 20 to 30 times a day down to 2 or 3 times a day. And in fact, the last time I spoke to him, he wasn't even using his inhaler at all on most days. That's a shift in his consciousness, and the way he thought about it brought a phenomenal change in his health. So just in this case of the asthma, I need to be clear about this. So anybody that's listening, don't attempt to do this without proper medical supervision and advice from your physician. And the shift in the thinking did not cure his asthma. We just reduced his dependency on his inhaler. And we worked with his doctor, right? So this, over the course of a few weeks after we'd shifted his thinking, we worked with his doctor to make sure that we achieved the outcome and that he always had his inhaler available. And even when I was talking to him just recently, he still has his inhaler available with him everywhere he goes. So if you're going to take this 6-step process and you're going to apply it to an area of your health that you want to improve, please make sure that you work with your physician, because you will get phenomenal results, but it's important that you do it in the right context with a physician. So even with all of that said, though, the end result was because he shifted his thinking around what an attack was. So you can make huge leaps forward in your health with the right kind of shift. And to me, reaching your full potential, anyone to be able to reach their full potential is only dependent on having the right kind of thinking. Now, I'm hoping with those three examples that our listeners will be able to see a bit of a theme here. And it's got a lot to do with challenging that operations manager that we were talking about, your unconscious mind, to make sure that whatever your operations manager is telling you is the truth. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later when we get into the 6 steps. Do you think, Debra, that explains just how powerful a small shift how powerful an impact a small shift can have on people's lives?
Yes, absolutely. And it seems that you believe that anyone has the potential to achieve these shifts and thus create huge results in their lives. Is that true, that really anyone can do it?
Absolutely. Look, I think, there's a lot of people these days saying that I think a very common saying is that we have the potential to be, to do, and to have anything that we want, right? And I think that it's said that often out there, that it's really, it's becoming cliche, and people are not getting those kinds of results. They're hearing people say that they can have, that they have all of the potential to achieve whatever they want, and they're not seeing those results. And people are they're hearing it, and it's becoming cliche, and I think people are beginning to believe it less and less and less. But the truth is, right, it is really completely and absolutely true. And like I was talking about before, it only takes, to be able to get those kinds of results, it only takes a small shift in your consciousness, in the way you think, the way you consciously think about things, and you can get some phenomenal results. And if you're not getting the results, if you're not really seeing that you're up to the full potential that you believe that you have, and that I believe everyone has, then it's only because you haven't made this shift. And these 6 steps are going to help you do that, and we are getting very close to going through them. So just on this point, right, there's a great analogy that I like to use. And if you ever go to Florence, right, or if you've ever seen any photos or any images of some of the work that Michelangelo did, there's one particular piece of work that he started, but he didn't actually finish it. And it's this huge square block of marble, right? And you can see where he started carving it, and you can see a man taking shape inside the marble. All you can really see is just his legs and his chest, right? And it actually looks like he's struggling to get out of the marble. And this is really, for me, I always think about this, because for me it's a perfect symbol, right, of both of the way Michelangelo used to work, but also the way that I see everybody that I come in contact with. And Michelangelo summed it up by saying, in every block of marble, I see a statue as plain as though it stood right before me. It's shaped, and it's in perfect attitude and action. He said, I only have to hew away through the rough walls of the marble that imprison that lovely apparition to reveal it to everyone else's eyes as I see it through mine. And I believe that when we really think about our true potential and our real potential, it's exactly the same as that. We're imprisoned in blocks of our belief, and we have to hew away at those beliefs so we can shine through. I think that, when I'm talking to someone or when I'm working with someone, I always believe that they already have absolutely everything that they need, that they don't have to learn how to get it, they don't have to create it, it's already inside of us. And the only thing that they have to do is unlearn the rules that are keeping them from really just hewing away at their marble block and allowing their true potential to shine through. I think that's just a fabulous the way he used to work.
Yeah, I like that image, imprisoned in blocks of our beliefs. Wow.
Absolutely, yeah.
I could see that we are. And I imagine that what the 6 steps do is release the blocks.
Absolutely. This is how you release or hew away at those blocks of your belief so you can really be and have anything you want. And I'm not just saying that, right? I gave you those 3 examples up front so you can see that when someone really does shift their consciousness, and anyone can do this, when they shift their consciousness, they will change their lives. And it happens in 5 minutes. You may have to do a little bit of work beforehand. If you're not experienced at this, you'll have to go through the 6 steps, and it might take a bit of work to get through it. But you know what? If it took a week, or even if it took a month, right? And at the end of the month, you could see that you were now able to create your total financial freedom, or have that exquisite relationship, or have that abundant health that you want. If you just wanted to lose 10 extra pounds and you go through this process, it will show you, it will set your mind up so you can lose those 10 pounds. And the process applies to whatever you do. And if it takes you a month to do it on your own, or even 2 months to do it on your own, and you've been struggling for 30 years to become financially free, that time frame is nothing. It's nothing, is it?
That's for sure. When you said even if it takes a week or a month, and I'm laughing, I'm thinking, hey, if it takes a year or two, and I know that it's much quicker with what you have for us, but if it takes a year or two, when you've been suffering and struggling for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, what is a few months for the shift to take place?
Yeah, exactly. Look, there was a lady I was working with just last week, right? And I'll make this one very short. She fell off a horse, right? And she got kicked in the head by the horse and ended up with some pretty serious head injuries, right? And doctors told her that if she ever has a bump on the head again, there's a high likelihood that she'll never recover from it. She won't wake up from it, right? So this was pretty powerful thing that happened to her. And she said, I just don't have any more. I don't have any confidence anymore to get back up on a horse and ride. And I said, well, have you ever been on a horse since the accident? She said, oh, yeah, I'm getting on my horse all the time, and I'm riding around the paddock, but I just don't have the confidence to get out and ride beyond the paddock, right, on her own outside of the paddock. And, I just said to her, look, the problem isn't, the shift that she got was, it wasn't her confidence that was the problem. She was very confident. Anyone who can get back up on a horse, even if they're only riding around a paddock after they've been through that kind of injury, has got a lot of confidence. The problem was she just wasn't getting over the fear of what might happen if she left the paddock. And as soon as she realized that, and we spoke about it, she said, I'm going to take a year, and every day I'm going to go 10 feet more out of my paddock. Just every day, I'm just going to stretch myself a little bit further every day. And what she realized was it might take her a year to do it, but she'll have another 30 or 40 years of being able to ride that horse wherever she wants once she overcomes that fear. That's the kind of shift that you can get using this process. And we better get into it, otherwise we're going to run out of time.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So look, there's no need for anyone to take notes, because we're going to give you a link where you'll be able to get a workbook that has all of the 6 steps in it, and just a few defining notes about what each of the 6 steps are. So you'll be able to take this away from this interview and start using it straight away. Okay. So step 1. In fact, I'd rather the audience didn't take notes, because it's more important that they listen to these things, because they'll get the workbook anyway at the end of the interview, right? Step 1. You need to challenge everything that you believe is true or not true. Everything. It's just too easy to accept anything as true or as not true without really questioning how we determine that position. This is the very, very first thing that I do with anybody that I work with, right? If they say to me, I need a partner to complete my life, the first thing is I'll say, why? Right? And I'll make them explain why, and I'll make them justify the rationale they used. And this is phenomenally powerful, right? What I'd like our people to do, what I'd like our listeners to do when they think about this first step, is to imagine that they're standing in front of a judge and a jury in a courtroom, and that you're presenting the evidence to support that truth or that untruth that you have. All right? And I want you to make yourself comply to the rules of proof that only a court would accept. And I can let you know that saying something like, that's the way it's always been done, would never, ever stand up as an accepted form of proof in a court of law, right? So imagine anything that, even if you say to yourself, I want to be debt-free, right? You should be challenging that Why do you want to be debt-free? What does it mean? Where did you come up with that thinking? Challenge every single thing that comes into your mind, especially when you start thinking about something that you want to achieve. You know, if you want to have a relationship and you say to yourself, or you see a girl or a guy that you really, really like, and you go, oh, they'll never talk to me. I'll never be able to talk to them. Challenge that and work out. Imagine that you're standing in front of a judge and a jury and work out, present the real evidence, the real facts that would suggest that that is true. And you'll find if you do that, that often a lot of the evidence actually will never really stand up to that kind of scrutiny. And when you do that, that alone can create a powerful shift. And that's just the first step, right? I was watching an old interview with Steve Jobs, and it was recorded back in 1995, just 18 months before he went back to Apple and took it from almost bankruptcy to one of the most valuable companies in the US, right? So when Steve Jobs went back to Apple, it had 90 days before the company went bankrupt. And he turned it in, went from that place to taking it to one of the most valuable companies in the US. And he said that he challenged everything. And the one thing that he challenged that really sort of got on his nerves was anyone who said, that's the way it's always been done. That was just huge for him. And if anyone said that to him, it was like a red flag to a bull. So the first step is challenge everything that you believe, right? The second step is begin to believe that you can do it. Now, I've got an exercise for you here that's going to help you get through that. But the second step is believe that you can do it. Remember what Michelangelo said? In every block of marble, I can see a statue as plain as though it stood before me, shaped and perfect in attitude and action. Right? I only have to hew a way through the walls that imprison that lovely apparition to reveal it to the eyes of other people as mine see it. Begin to believe that is you. When you believe that that's you, even if you can't really see it in yourself right in that moment, you struggle to believe it, just know that it's in there and that your job is to get it out. Your job isn't to create it. Your job isn't to find it. Your job isn't to learn it. Your job is just to allow it out. Allow that wonderful, spectacular spirit that's inside every one of us to come out. You don't have to learn it. Just believe that it's in there and start working your way through getting it out. Now, here's a great exercise, right? If you're struggling to believe that you really can do it, right? Here's the exercise. I want you to grab a journal, just grab any book, or you can even do this on your computer. You just need to grab a journal, and at the end of every day, you just have to ask yourself one question and then write the answer down to this, right? Yeah, and the question is, what did I do so you'll get this in the workbook, right? So there's no need to write it down now. You'll get this in the workbook. What did I do today that made someone else happy, even if they didn't give me the recognition that I deserved for it? Okay, so that question is so powerful when you answer it. Because a lot of people will judge whether they can or can't do anything based on the recognition that other people give them. So the moment that you start saying to yourself, well, how did I make other people happy today, even if they didn't tell me they made me happy, even if they got angry at me because I was doing something that I thought made them happy. When you begin to write that down, journal that down every single day, that simple exercise alone over the space of about 4 or 5 weeks will begin to shift how you feel about your ability to be able to do anything, right? And I'm just so into these things where you just do simple things to make major shifts, right? I love doing that kind of work with my clients. All of this stuff that I'm telling you, I do it with my clients, and it just works, right? Because it's simple and it's easy to do. You'll get that question in the workbook, but I'll just go back over it again. Just grab a journal, and every day, if you're struggling to believe that you can do it, just grab a journal and ask yourself this every day. What did I do today that made someone else happy, even if they didn't give me the recognition that I deserve for it? Okay? Step 3. Fear is a good thing. Right? Fear is a good thing. A lot of people, or many people, really misunderstand what the emotion fear is. And it's really all it is a safety mechanism that warns us when we're facing potential danger. Right? Sometimes that danger is life-threatening, like in the case when we were talking about that guy who had asthma. Many times, though, in our developed Western society, it's more about a warning sign that alerts us to the fact that we're about to step outside of our comfort zone. That's all it is. It's not a life-threatening thing. And any danger that we perceive is only what we created in our own mind. Right? That's generally where the danger exists. It's just something that we create in our own mind. So these are some of the fears that we create ourselves, which have no substance in reality. Things like, oh, I'll embarrass myself. They won't like me. I'm not good enough, or I couldn't do that. Okay? They're the kinds of things that create fear in our own minds, right? And what we need to do is recognize that fear is just a good thing. And when you start hearing yourself say those things, all it's doing is alerting you to the fact that you are stepping outside of your own comfort zone. So what I'd like you to do to help you overcome that, or come to terms with the fact that fear is a good thing, I'd like you to think about things this way, right? Here's a shift that you can make right now. Do you really, ask yourself this question, do you really want to be sitting here a year from now saying the same thing, or do you want to be looking back over the choices that you've made and being happy with the decisions that you've made to push through that fear? All right? When you ask yourself that question, that will create a small shift in your own reality that can produce the results that will push you through those barriers, right? Now here's a little sidebar for you, right? At the end of the interview, when you go to download download this workbook that I'm going to give you, you'll be able to find access to an NLP process that will help you overcome fear. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Step 4, right? So actually, I might just quickly recap. Step 1, challenge everything that you think is true, or even if you think it's not true, challenge everything. Begin to believe that you can do it. And if you struggle with that, remind yourself of that image that Michelangelo uses and start asking yourself that question and writing in your journal every night. Step 3, know that fear is a good thing, not something that you should prevent you from moving forward. And ask yourself that question at the end, do I really still want to be sitting here in 12 months not having made any changes at all? Or do I want to actually push through this fear now, through this barrier that I've created, and actually start to make a difference in terms of the things that I want in my life? Step 4 is to look after yourself, right? This is all about respecting yourself, putting your boundaries in place, and making sure the people around you understand what those boundaries are and what will happen if you cross them, right? Most people will be amazed at the number of people that come to me and say something like, everyone treats me like a doormat and I'm sick of it, right? So I get people in my coaching program that'll say things like that to me. And the first thing that I'll say to them is, do you know how to say no? Now, often there's lots of excuses why they can't say no, like things like, oh, they need me, they depend on me, they won't be able to survive without me. But what ends up happening is that these people say yes to every single request, and they begin to resent the very people that they're helping, because those people just take advantage of them because they always say yes to them. This is just one example of what can happen when you don't have your boundaries in place, and this is a very, very common example. So the simple truth is, in this instance, even if you don't worry so much about the rest of your boundaries, if you could just get this one boundary in place, then it will free you up in amazing ways, right? So the simple truth is we just need to learn to say no. And I can tell you this, what a difference it makes, because this is what I used to be like in my life. I always used to be saying yes. And I can understand how easy it is, how it happens that you get caught up in that trap. So again, here's another simple way that you can set that boundary in place, right? Again, I like people to be able to have really simple things that they can do. So all they have to do is simply say no to everything, right? If someone says, can you cook me dinner tonight? Say no. If someone says, can you drive me to the shop? Say no. So if someone says, I need you to do this for me, just say no. Get into the habit of saying no. You can always change your mind. You can always go back and say, oh, all right, I will do it. But get into the habit of saying no. And don't just jump straight in and change your mind straight away. Just give people a chance to get used to you saying no and see what happens. You may be very surprised to find that people will actually be able to do those things on their own, and it will free up your time. And I work with a lot of clients who have this problem, and the moment they start saying no to everybody, it frees up their time and it empowers them and makes them feel really good about who they are. And guess what? That begins to feed back into step 2, into believing that you can do it. And then it begins to help them overcome their fears, and it begins to help them challenge their beliefs. So all of these things work together to be able to create that shift in your consciousness. Step 5 is about setting your unconscious priorities correctly. Right? Our unconscious mind decides how we behave and what really is important to us based on the operations manual and policies that we put in place. Remember we talked about that. That's our values and beliefs, right? So our unconscious priorities will always have a priority over our conscious priorities. I'll just say that again. Our unconscious or our subconscious priorities will always have priority over our conscious priorities. So it's very important that we know what our subconscious priorities are and how we can change them by shifting our consciousness by using some of those, the first 4 steps that we talked about. But here's how you identify if you've got a conflict in your conscious versus subconscious priorities. Again, this will all be in the workbook, right? So all you need to do is write down the top 10 things that you spent your time consistently doing over the last 4 weeks, right? You need to be really brutally honest with yourself while you're doing this. If you spent most of your free time on the couch watching sports or down at the pub with your mates, that's okay, but just be honest and write that down. Then the next thing to do is to write down the top 4 goals that are really important to you to achieve in your life. Now, often, you'll find that there's a huge mismatch in this area, right? Some people, for instance, will tell me that their health is very important to them. And then when I ask them what the top 5 things they did over the last 5 or 6 weeks are, it'll be about spending time with their friends and family, relaxing after work, watching TV, eating out, etc. And there'll be nothing in there about exercising, about eating healthily, about researching and reading books about how to create a healthy eating regime. So in their consciousness, in their conscious mind, they have a priority of health, but their subconscious mind, their subconscious priorities don't. They don't have a priority of health, and consequently, nothing really happens to change it. So if you can learn to recognize the differences or the mismatches in these, in your priorities, then you will actually, that in itself, just seeing that mismatch will create a shift in your consciousness, which will allow you to go on and make really big change. So step 6, the final step, is to model other people that have already done what you do. All right. And I would have to say that it's extremely unlikely that what you want to achieve hasn't already been done by someone else, right? So if your highest priority in life is to, let's make up something really stupid. If your highest priority in life is to travel backwards and forwards in time in an instant, then this step, modeling other people that have already done it, isn't going to work for you, and you can skip it because I don't know anybody who's actually done that yet. But if your goals are things like becoming financially free, or creating exquisite relationships, or abundant health, or even creating greater spirituality, then for the most part, it's already been done. And it's been done very successfully by a whole lot of people. So there's no need for anyone to reinvent the wheel. Just copy what those successful people have done before and copy it exactly. And once someone said to me once you get to guru status, that's when you have the right to go about starting to change the rules on how you can do things. But before you get to that stage, really all you need to be doing, all you should be doing, is just copying the people who have already done it before. Stand on their shoulders, learn from them, implement those things in your life. Then when you get really good at something, then you can go about changing the rules, right? Now, here's something that I've only learned about recently. I love this. At the moment, I'm all consumed with it at the moment, right? There's a mountain of documentaries about creating better health. They're all about people who have created better health. They're about people who have created bigger and better businesses. They're about people who have become enlightened and spiritual. They're about people who have created exquisite relationships. If you watch those documentaries, but more importantly, if you watch those documentaries about the people that have already done it, then you will learn how they think about those things, and you'll be able to emulate it. You'll be able to copy it. And all you have to do is set aside half an hour or an hour and a half once or twice a week, sit on the couch and watch a bit of TV. That's all it is. And you will become aware of how other people have actually created these really significant changes in their life, and you'll be able to start emulating it and making those changes yourself. So we're all influenced by the people that surround ourselves. And these days, that kind of technology will actually allow us to surround ourselves with some of the greatest people that ever existed. If you sit down, if you really push this and sat down every day for an hour and a half and watched a documentary about some of the greatest business minds in the world, and you did that every day for a month, it's the equivalent of well, not quite, but almost the equivalent of surrounding yourself with those people. And you will learn so much from them, and all you have to do is model what they do, emulate what they do. So that's the 6 steps, Debra. I know I pushed through that fairly quickly, but like I said, people can get this in the workbook in the link at the end of this interview. So they'll be able to take it away with them.
Well, each one of those steps is completely brilliant. I'm sure implementing just one could cause a major shift in someone's consciousness and in someone's life. And each one was more profound than the one before. Thank you so much for being so generous and giving that to us, and then also for allowing us to actually have it in written format. So why don't we, since we are at the top of the hour, I know that there's so much more to learn from you, and I know that there are ways to even accelerate the process. I would love it if you could share with us your offer that you've put together specifically for our community. So is it all right if we go ahead and you share your offer with us?
Sure, that would be spectacular.
Okay, because I personally, that I love your work, and I see so much of it as really fresh and new, and I'm just very excited to see what you've put together for the offer. So everybody, to access this package for yourself, just click on the special offer button on this web page. And I highly encourage you to go to Richard's special offer right now and experience it for yourself. So can you let everyone know what they'll find there?
I sure can. And I'm going to be very blunt about this, right? What I want is to see everybody have everything that they want. It's that simple, right? I get a phenomenal amount of joy from being able to see people hew away at those blocks and come out spectacular on the other side when they recognize just that they really do have it inside them. So everything that I create is designed specifically to accelerate that process. So that 6-step process that we just talked about is what I use in all of my coaching programs, right? And the products that I create are designed to accelerate that 6-step process. But I have to say, right, aside from the one-on-one coaching program that I do and my subliminal videos, my Success Accelerator subliminal videos produce phenomenal results, right? And it's because they're designed to work directly with your subconscious mind. Now, I've been creating subliminal videos now for too long to remember. I think it must be about 8 years, and I've done so much research into how subliminal messaging actually works. And these days, right, it's such an accepted technology in the scientific community that they actually use what they call subliminal priming with their subjects to get them into a particular state so they can observe what happens to them in that particular state. So they're not even trying to prove whether subliminal messaging works or not. They just know it works. They prime their subjects with it, then that allows them to observe a particular state. So if they want to see what somebody's brain works like when they're confident, they'll use subliminal messaging to prime them to be confident. Then they'll measure the brain activity of a confident person. Then they'll unprime them and take away the confidence so they walk out the same way that they walked in. That's the technology, right? That's what I've been researching. That's what I know works, and that's the kind of technology, this subliminal priming, that I've included in my videos. But I've also taken it one step further, right? I use brainwave entrainment soundtrack that runs in the background that allows people to very rapidly get into that meditative state that allows the messages to even more easily pass through their conscious mind straight into their unconscious mind. You've heard of, I think there's a number of companies that say, you can use brainwave entrainments to get into a very meditative state. And I think one company even says, learn to meditate like a monk in just a few minutes. That's brainwave entrainment tracks. That's how they do it. We've got those in the background in our subliminal videos. So not only are you getting the messages, you're getting into that very relaxed state that you can get into that allows those messages to come through. We also have a thing called stereo confusion, which is subliminal affirmations played auditory, but one set played in your left ear and one set played in your right ear. And the feedback that we got was that those videos with this stereo confusion in it saw results from the videos even more accelerated than what we'd previously seen. So we've included those. These are the brand new, latest subliminal videos with the latest technology that we've researched and put into them. The images are now specifically designed and matched to create exactly the kinds of feelings that you want. So you can have, if you want more confidence, or if you want to be able to win friends easily, or if you want to be able to work with the law of attraction, if you want to be able to feel a greater connection with the universe, if you want to be able to attract your ideal partner, whether it's a man or a woman, whatever your ideal partner is, if you want to have more money in your life, if you want to create your own financial freedom, we have created a pack of subliminal videos that you get all of those subliminal videos. I think there's 9 in the pack for the one price, right? All the subliminal videos, they've all got the brainwave entrainment, the stereo confusion, the subliminal affirmation, audio affirmations, the visual affirmations. You can download them instantly. But here's the thing. Everybody gets a free copy, no additional charges. They're going to get a free DVD of the videos shipped to their house anywhere in the world, completely free. And with this release, that DVD will actually not only play on your computer, but you'll also be able to play it on your DVD player so you can watch them on TV. And all it takes, right, we talk about small shifts in consciousness. All it takes is 12 minutes, once in the morning, once in the evening. That's all it takes. Do that for a month, and you will have a phenomenal shift in consciousness that will all on its own make a big difference in attracting into your life whatever it is that you want. But if you combine that with the 6 steps that we've just been through, and you work on those 6 steps while you're doing the subliminal videos, then the results will multiply exponentially. And it doesn't end there, right? I'm not going to throw in a set of free steak knives, right? But I do have my Breakthrough to Brilliance personal self-paced training program. And you get a month of that for free. You don't have to take it if you don't want to, but it's available to you if you want to pick up the first month for absolutely free. In that first month, there's an NLP process and a hypnosis process to help you overcome any fears that you might have. Remember, when a 6-step process is recognizing fear as a good thing, or you can get a process that will allow you to pretty much obliterate fears any fears that you have in about half an hour. You get a process that's going to help you, once you've identified any limiting beliefs that you have, that will help you clear away any limiting beliefs you have. You get a process that will help you make good, positive decisions and clear away any negative decisions that you've made in your life. That's in the first 4 weeks, which everyone gets for free if you take it up. And then if you want to go on, it's a 6-month program, and then we talk about money and we talk about relationships, and we've got a whole lot of NLP and hypnosis processes in the background that you can use to improve those things. But the first month is free. You can take it if you want, and you get those processes. You get the subliminal videos. You'll get the subliminal videos, all 8 or 9, I think it is now, 9 subliminal videos. You'll get the free hard DVD delivered to your door, as well as a download and online version. And obviously, you're going to get the 6-step process workbook as well. So you just have to click on that link that Debra gave you, and you'll be able to pick up your workbook, and you can see this offer that is available to you in the same place. How's that, Debra? Is that good value?
That is an amazing value. I'm just looking at some of these testimonials. Like, people have had results in every area of their lives, from business to relationships to, just wanting to give up and turning their lives around. And I love all of these accelerators: win friends easily, unshakable self-confidence, attract your ideal lover, manifesting money, joy, sex, and love into your life. I mean,
that's my favorite. Yeah,
no kidding. This is phenomenal. And 100% risk-free, no questions asked, money-back guarantee.
I didn't even mention that, but if it's just 60, you get 60 days. Even if they don't use them and they don't follow any of the instructions, we don't care. Just, you can get your money back if that's what you want. It's absolutely risk-free. I'm only interested in helping people get a shift that will change their lives, so that true potential that's inside them can come out. It's inside every one of us.
Wow. Well, I'm going to ask you one more question, and that is, what have you seen, like the short-term benefits, like something that somebody could expect to experience right away, and then something that someone might experience over time by applying what you teach in your program?
Straight away, these are the kinds of comments that I'll get. Right? People will write into me and they'll say, I started using your subliminal videos today, or I only started using them yesterday, and I already feel more confident. I already feel happier. Almost immediately, people will experience a shift in how they feel. Right? Now, that feeling, as you do each of the videos and as you do them more and more over time, that feeling will extend. It'll become more and more part of your entire day. So you might feel really good. If you watch the videos today, you'll begin to feel really good while you're watching the videos, and you may feel really good for 3 or 4 hours afterwards, right? And then you do it at night and you go to bed feeling great. But as you do that with time, you begin to feel more and more, you begin to feel better, feel happier, feel more joy every single day. And that happens almost immediately. That's what people are writing in and telling us. Over the longer term, in the long term here, we're talking about, it's really long, between 30 and 60 days, that's, forever. Over that period of time, as long as you do these videos consistently, I'll put that qualifier on them. The way that they work best is watch them for 12 minutes, once in the morning, once in the evening. Over the 30 to 60 days, you'll become more confident. If you do the confident video, you will begin to see more people that meet your partner criteria come into your life, right? I remember one lady wrote into me and she said, I think this is on my testimonials page, right? She wrote into me and she said, it's as if I was invisible before I watched your videos, and then I watched your videos, and then I became visible, and all of these guys started approaching me. Yeah. And she said, now, this is not a typical testimonial. She said that happened within a day of her watching the videos, starting to watch the videos. So they're the kinds of things that you can expect to happen over that huge term, 30 to 60 days. I say 30 days, and it is really 30 days. But that's for one set of videos, and you can watch another video. So you might watch the confidence video and the awakening video for 30 days. And then the next 30 days, you might watch win friends easily and the law of attraction for the next 30 days. And look, Debra, I have literally thousands of testimonials. None of them are solicited. They all come in through my customer service department, and they get the customer service team gets their permission, they put the testimonials up on my blog. What I'll do is I'll put a whole bunch of those testimonials on that download page so people can see them. How's that sound?
That sounds fantastic. We'd love to hear other people's experiences because it's such an inspiration. And in the meantime, I want to tell you one more time.
If you haven't done it yet, just click on the special offer button on this page to see for yourself what an amazing package this is. You will be so glad you did.
Wow. So, Richard, thank you so much for everything that you have given us and also for this truly amazing offer. Before we sign off, are there any final thoughts that you'd like to share with everyone?
Yes, there is one thing. There's one thing that from that, when I was in the bottom of that well, right, there was one thing that began the journey. I said something that Wayne Dyer said. When you begin to think about things differently, the things you see will become different. Right? I'm not sure that that's exact words, but essentially when you change your thinking, you will change the way you behave. And that will change literally your reality. And that shift can happen in as little as a few minutes. If you do any of those 6 step processes, you may find that you get the shift really quickly. If you get those videos, it'll make it even easier to happen for you. So when you change the way you think about things, the world around you will change. It's that simple.
Fantastic. And we are definitely into accelerating the process. Everything is moving so quickly right now. So we want to get on that fast train to having those shifts and creating the life that we want. You are fantastic, and I hope that you'll come back and share more with us. But really, just again, thank you for that, your very, very generous offer, and thank you for everything that you've given us today.
It's my pleasure, Debra. I'm really honored to have the opportunity to be able to talk with you and be able to, get the message out there that people can have whatever they want. I think it's just so important.
Yeah,
I'm so driven to do it.
Yeah, and I think that we really see it not only in your life, but all of the experiences that you've shared with us from people who have taken advantage of your program. And they're just real life experiences of people just, as you say, making a small shift, but you have to know how to make that shift. So we're really looking forward to putting to use what you have offered to us. And thank you again.
My pleasure. I'll see you next time. You have a great afternoon.
I hope so. And thank you to everyone for spending this time with me and with Richard Locke. And I look forward to when we are all together again and to you living your life without limits. This is Debra Poneman. Enjoy the rest of your day.